Today, mortgage stress goes to the moon. Hello again, I'm Martin North from Digital Finance Analytics. Welcome to our latest post covering finance and property news with a distinctively Australian flavour. Today, we look at our latest mortgage stress results to the end of November, based on the results from our household surveys and core market models. And frankly, it's not pretty. But before we get into the details, here is a clip from Harry Dent, who, as you may recall, visited Australia recently. In fact, we made a couple of shows, one where I discussed central banks and their role in the crisis with Harry Dent, called Harry Dent is in Australia and we catch up again, and the other where John Adams and Harry had an in-depth discussion, Harry Dent and the Great Reset. When Harry got home, he made a summary of his observations and included some comments about our work, and he specifically called out our mortgage stress analysis as a significant and granular leading indicator.
Hi, I just got back from Australia, a 5-city tour. I was gone for 11 days. I was on the ground there for 8 days. It was also unusual that they had me back in November because I was there in February. Normally I go to Australia every year or a little longer. And there was a reason for this. Real estate markets are starting to crack in Australia, and they have the strongest real estate markets in the developed world. In fact, they're now the most overvalued outside of China. And then, of course, you know what we think about China, the greatest bubble in history. And Hong Kong has 19 times income to buy a house, the most developed part of China. And in Sydney, it's 10. In Melbourne, it's 9. Those are the most overvalued developed country cities in the world, along with Vancouver in Canada. So you know, something's happening there. And there was a 60 Minutes show there that was had some key people warning, like I've been warning for years there, that you could see as much as a 40% crash. I see that or more. And Martin North was one of those. He's from Digital Finance Analytics. He's an incredible financial analyst, real guy, totally objective, has the facts on everything. I mean, he's my type of guy. So I met with him and John Adams because what I see happening in Australia is similar to what I saw in the US back in 2006. In late 2005, we warned that the real estate bubble in the United States was about to peak. Sales had already started to fall. That's a leading indicator. And guess what? By April 2006, prices peaked and started to fall. Mortgage stress started rising and more mortgage defaults and subprime, problems. And everybody thought, oh, it's containable. It's only a small percentage of loans. And it just got worse and worse and worse. Real estate was the leading indicator, and the U.S. was the bubble most prone to burst because of our subprime, our terrible lending. I mean, the most liberal lending in all of history. Canada didn't do that. Australia didn't do that. Most of Europe didn't go as far as we did in the types of no down and no doc loans and all this sort of stuff, and teaser rates and all this sort of stuff. So we were the trigger for a global bubble already ready to burst because of demographics and unprecedented debt levels. Well, I think that's what's happening in Australia today. Their Teflon real estate market in an economy that's still strong. They're just like we were in 2006. Their real estate prices, especially in the leading cities, Sydney and Melbourne, peaked in mid-2017. And now they're down 8 to 9% in Sydney and maybe 6 to 7% in Melbourne. But in the higher end areas and suburbs and beach areas and stuff, they're down 15 to 19%. And that's where the foreign buying and the more affluent starts. And I've been warning, this real estate bubble is going to be the opposite of the subprime. It's going to start at the high-end markets, fed by foreign buyers and affluent people in this bubble, and then filter down into the lower-end markets over time. And that's what's happening in Australia. I see it as a leading indicator, just like it was in early 2006. But one of the best indicators, again, from Martin North, which he allowed me to use with our attendees in Australia, was mortgage stress. Now, this is the best analysis I've ever seen. I can't even get this in the United States at this level. He had mortgage stress first, not just by income levels or cities or something, by lifestyles. It was the more affluent, the older households and the most affluent younger households that are the most in stress rates of 12-13%, say, versus maybe 5, 6, 7, 8 in everyday households. That's not supposed to happen. And that didn't happen in the subprime crisis here. It was the lower end households that defaulted from these teaser loans and loans really they couldn't afford that were encouraged strongly by the government and Wall Street here. So this is showing a different process. It's starting on the high end. It's going to move down. And I think their real estate prices have peaked. Martin North's analysis also showed overall stress rates on mortgages have spiked in the last several months. That is a sign that the crisis is starting, probably the best single sign you could find. Their real estate sales and volume have fallen just like they did in the US. So I think this is a leading indicator.
And by the way, if you value the content we produce, please do consider joining our Patreon program. Here is a link. Or make a donation via PayPal. Again, here is the link, so that you can support our ability to continue to make great content. So we've released the November 2018 Mortgage Stress and Default Analysis Update. The latest RBA data on household debt to income to June reached a new high of 190.5. This high debt level helps to explain the fact that mortgage stress continues to rise. Across Australia, more than 1,015,600 households are estimated now to be in mortgage stress, compared with just over 1 million last month. This equates to 30.9% of owner-occupied borrowing households. And in addition, more than 22,500 of these are in severe stress. We estimate that more than 61,000 households risk 90-day default in the next 12 months. Now, we continue to see the impact of flat wages growth, rising living costs, and higher real mortgage rates. Bank losses are likely to rise a little ahead. Our analysis uses the DFA core market model, which combines information from our 52,000 household surveys, public data from the RBA, ABS and APRA, and private data from lenders and aggregators. The data is current to the end of November 2018. We analyse household cash flow based on real incomes, outgoings and mortgage repayments, rather than using an arbitrary 30% of income. Households are defined as stressed when net income, or cash flow, does not cover ongoing costs. They may or may not have access to other available assets, and some have paid ahead, but households in mild stress have little leeway in their cash flows, whereas those in severe stress are unable to meet repayments from current income. In both cases, households manage this deficit by cutting back on spending, putting more on credit cards, and seeking to refinance, restructure, or sell their homes, and those in severe stress are more likely to be seeking hardship assistance and are often forced to sell. Now, this rise in stress, which has continued for the past 6 years or so, should be of no surprise at all. The continued rises in living costs, noticeably childcare, school fee and food, whilst real incomes continue to fall and underemployment is causing significant pain. Many are dipping into savings to support their finances, and despite this, households are still looking to spend more over Christmas. The latest ABS GDP numbers confirmed the falling savings ratio. Indeed, the fact that significant numbers of households have had their potential borrowing power crimped by lending standards belatedly being tightened and are therefore mortgage prisoners is also significant. More than 49% of those seeking to refinance are now having difficulty. This is strongly aligned to those who are registering as stressed. These are households urgently trying to reduce their monthly outgoings. In addition, negative equity is now rearing its head. Now, the next question to consider is which households are being impacted. In fact, negative equity is touching lots of different segments for different reasons, but collectively, it is an early warning sign of what is to come. Now, the probability of default extends our mortgage stress analysis by overlaying economic indicators such as employment, future wages growth, and CPI changes. And our core market model also examines the potential of portfolio risk of loss in basis points and value terms. And losses are likely to be higher among more affluent households, contrary to the popular belief that affluent households are well protected. This is shown in the segment analysis. Turning to our regional analysis, it shows that New South Wales now has 281,275 households in stress, compared with 272,000 last month. Victoria has 283,395, compared with 281,000 last month. And Queensland has 181,156, compared with 178,000 last month. Western Australia has 132,135, compared with 132,000 last month. The probability of default over the next 12-month rose, with around 11,560 in Western Australia, around 11,300 in Queensland, 15,300 in Victoria, and 16,200 in New South Wales. A quick countdown of the top 10 most stressed postcodes across the country shows that in 10th place it's Victorian postcode 3977, the areas around Cranbourne, where 4,400 households are in mortgage stress, and 475 risk default in the next 12 months. In 9th place is another Victorian postcode, 3810, the area around Pakenham, where 4,465 households are in stress and 166 risk default in the next year. In 8th place, we go to Western Australia to 6030, which include places like Merriwa, Quinns Rock and Tamala Park. Here, 4,949 households are in difficulty and 208 risk default in the next 12 months. Next, we go to Berwick and Harkaway, another Victorian postcode 3806, where 5,466 households are in stress and 144 risk default in the next year or so. In 5th place, we turn to 3350, the area around Ballarat, where 5,520 households are in stress and 142 are risking default ahead. In 4th place is Queensland postcode 4350, the area around Toowoomba, where 6,356 households are in stress and 262 risk default. In 3rd place is Western Australia at postcode 6065, which includes area around Hocking, Tapping and Waranga, where 6,592 households are in stress and 262 risk default in the coming 12 months. In 2nd place, we come back to Sydney to 2560, the area around Campbelltown and Roos, with an estimated 6,982 households in stress and 117 risking default in the next year. But the postcode with the highest level of mortgage stress in November was another Sydney postcode, 2170, the area around Liverpool and Warwick Farm, with 7,096 households in stress and 111 risking default. Standing back, many of these areas are fast-growing, highly developed areas on small lots, and many were purchased relatively recently. And we're also seeing signs of prices now sliding quite fast in some of these areas as more come onto the market. In fact, there is a growing correlation between mortgage stress and negative equity, something which I'll be looking at more closely in the months ahead. In fact, we discussed negative equity and its implications in a recent post, Negative Equity Rears Its Ugly Head. And in fact, I discussed the underlying drivers of mortgage stress with our property insider, Edwin Almeida, and he has some fascinating insights to add. Let's take a look. We're going to look in more detail at the underlying issues relating to mortgage stress. And I'm joined by our property expert, Edwin Almeida. Hello, Edwin.
Hello, Martin, and once again, another sunny day.
Long time no see, eh?
And another sunny day.
Exactly.
Wollongong never ceases to amaze me.
Now, you know I report mortgage stress down to a postcode level each month, right?
Yes.
And in the last few months, I've been watching the number of households in some particular postcodes around the outskirts of Sydney getting into quite significant difficulty. Places like Campbelltown and Liverpool and
Yes.
those places. What I'm interested to explore with you today is what's really going on, right? Because, of course, I see it from a financial perspective, but I don't necessarily know what's really going on the ground because I don't get out to those postcodes. You're out that way a lot, I think, and you understand those areas quite well. So what do you think is actually happening?
I think it's a number of things, Martin, and I guess from a mortgage stress point of view, both from an investor's point of view as well as an owner-occupier. Yep. What we saw is this huge rise in property prices in these hubs, because what you've posted is basically around hubs. You've got Liverpool, Campbelltown, Blacktown.
Yep.
So, and these towns are very old. Mm-hmm. But what you've so it's a two-prong. I feel it's a two-prong issue. Mm. One is that you've got dwellings that are, again, 50, 60, 70 years old. So they need a lot of maintenance.
Yep.
They need a lot of upkeep.
Yep.
Yeah. So land is appreciating, but the buildings are getting older. And all sorts of things fall off as we get old. Other than our hair. So you've got that issue.
Yep.
That's a real issue, but particularly for the investors, because maintenance bills just start skyrocketing and then the rents just are not covering it. Yep. From an owner-occupier's point of view, I think, again, you've got the same issue where it's maintenance. But the second problem, or my second observation in relation to this topic, is also around these old centres, you've got new satellite towns, new subdivisions. Yep. So you've got, for example, a 600 square metre block of land in Blacktown. In the good times, we got as close as 1,500 per square metre. Mm-hmm. Not taking into consideration the value of the dwelling that's on there, be it as old as it was. Yep. I look at the land. I like to break it down to land value. Yep. So that's in almost in the heart of Blacktown. Then you've got your Jordan Springs. You've got your subdivisions closer to your Parkley, Glenwood was one, and the Ponds. Yep. The Ponds in particular, where you've got 320 square metres blocks of land, worth a lot more than what you could pick up a 600 square metre block with an old house in the Blacktown. Now, it's crazy stuff, right? But it's all emotion. Mm. Emotion, and it's the old saying goes, not everything that shines is gold. Yeah. But yet, a lot of people gravitated towards that because they want the new and shiny piece. But it became also more accessible, and marketing companies, developers, it was the $1,000 deposits down and $5,000 deposits down, just in the outskirts of Blacktown in the old golf course there. We got townhouses, I call townhouses, got sold off the plan for $1.1 million. Yep. Again, on 260 square metres of land, because it was new and shiny, but yet it was so easy to get this credit. So obviously, when things change, you're going to get a lot of mortgage stress. So when you've got from these main centres, where you've got your old dwellings, but people don't want to live in old dwellings, Martin. It's old. I want something new and shiny. So we want to go to the subdivisions and pay twice as much for the land, and build there, but without thinking the fact that, hold on a minute, now we've got to travel from 10, 15 minutes further out to get to the central hub, transport hub, in order to get to the city to work. Yep. So we've almost doubled our time and also our cost of getting from home to work. That's going to put huge financial pressure on the individual. Mm. So it's not just one car. It's typically 3 or 4 cars. Yep. And they go on the drawdown facilities that are provided by the banks. They go on credit cards. And then, oh, Mum, oh, Dad, it's so hot. Oh, I can't catch a bus to the swimming pool. Let's build a pool.
Yep.
So you got all these subdivisions with pools, all these add-ons, and they get added on to the mortgage, added on to the credit card. So then you start obviously coming into this stress factor. Where there's a downturn, these are the areas obviously that start dropping in value a lot quicker.
Yep.
And I think that's from what I see happening. And again, you've got the subdivisions down in Campbelltown, the new subdivisions down there. You've got your new subdivisions around Liverpool, where further out from the hub.
Yeah.
The hubs were keys.
Yep.
But you've also got, I've noticed in some of those postcodes or some of those suburbs, you're starting to see an emergence of even areas closer to the city.
Yes.
But then you've got these development of this high-rise development, and that also comes with its own costs as well. So I think it's the extra expense on the mortgage that's really brought them into mortgage stress.
And I think you've highlighted three really interesting points. I see in the data more car loans,
Yes.
right, and multiple car loans, and a lot of these people. So they seem to need more cars. I think that's exactly right. Tick. So that's because there's very little public transport. I also see a lot of redraws. In other words, releasing equity out of the property to be able to actually do other things. Okay, and that's definitely been there. And of course, now with property values dropping, that's a bit tough. And then the third thing is, I think they've also bought a very expensive place relative to their income, and of course the banks were willing to lend them. So they actually have got a big mortgage to start with. You pull that together, and that's what we've got.
You've got your, that's right, and you've got your, and then you've got your toys.
Yeah.
What I call the toys. You've got your boats, your jet skis, and you've got to travel a lot further.
Yeah.
To the rivers, to the lakes for entertainment. Transport costs has increased, and that's what I talk about. All roads lead to the city.
Yeah.
Because there's really nothing happening out west when you really think about it in comparison to what's being developed closer to the city. So everybody's commuting closer to the city. So the transport costs, even if you were to catch a train from Campbelltown to the city, Penrith to the city, it's about $80 a week.
Sure. Yeah. And if you drive, you've got all the expenses of driving. Right?
You've got to drive to the car park to get to the station. Yeah. There's added costs, and as we said, it's not. And as I said before as well, and you just mentioned there, it's not one or two cars.
Yes.
It's 3 or 4 cars.
Yeah.
Because then the kids have got to get to school as well.
Yep.
So it's all these is a huge cost. Then you obviously with the car, you've got your insurance, you've got your rego, maintenance. And let's face it, most of these are young families out west. So if little Johnny and little Mary have got a car, and the insurance policies go through the roof because they're under 25 on their Ps, it's crazy.
Yep. And I'll tell you something else, and that is if I look at the cost of living for those types of households, right? They are significantly higher relative to what I'm seeing in some of the other postcodes closer into the city. So whilst they might think they're getting a bit of a bargain by going further out, when you add all the other costs that you're talking about...
But are they really getting a bargain?
No, I don't.
Were they really getting a bargain? Or were they duped into buying a bargain with $1,000 down and the $10,000 deposits and speculating as well? Yeah, they've got some capital growth. But now it's all going downhill. All that capital growth is diminishing.
Yeah, it's illusory, isn't it?
Yeah, so it's as I say, it's on paper, but it's being felt because what may be said to be on paper, at the end of the day, it's transpired into vehicles, it's transpired into toys, it's transpired into overseas trips. And Martin, let me also say this, that in my travels, a lot of these homes, they don't have your bottom of the line Toyotas or Nissans or Hyundais. We are talking about Mercs. We're talking about 4-wheel drives. We're talking about cars that are up there.
Yep. Yep.
So it's
And I know you've got a bit of a theory that, in fact, we should be looking at new sales trends because that's probably one of the leading indicators for trouble ahead.
I've said that for many years, and it's going to be the an industry that's just going to look. People, you're going to pick up bargains. Anything you consider as a toy. Look, for me, it's deja vu.
Yeah.
Deja vu 2004.
Yeah.
Just as simple as that. In there, the big stories were the households under mortgage stress, how it was valued at $480,000 and then it got revalued at $360,000. But what they didn't really tell you was also that they had two top of the range Holdens in the garage, and each room had a $13,000 plasma TV.
Yeah.
It's that's what I'm talking, because then again, you've got to entertain your children. What do you do when you're living so far out?
Yeah. Good
It's
point.
because there's not a lot going on there.
Yeah.
It's all based around those hubs.
Yep, absolutely. Well, you've really brought it to life, I think. The stuff that I see from the data, I think you've really brought it to life. So thank you. I really appreciate that.
That's all my pleasure.
Thank you very much. As always, it's worth saying that given flat incomes and rising costs and some mortgage rate rises, the pressure will continue and falling home prices will make things worse. Many people do not keep a cash flow, so they do not know their financial position. Drawing one up is the first step, and ASIC has some excellent advice on their Money Smart website. And the other point to make is, if you are in financial distress, you should talk to your lender. They do have an obligation to help in cases of hardship. The worst strategy is simply to ignore the issue and hope it will go away, but in my experience, this is unlikely. As always, if you like what you've seen here today, please share and like the post and add a comment or question. I read them all. And if you want to join the growing band of subscribers who receive alerts when we release new posts, do subscribe now by hitting the subscribe bell. And if you have already subscribed, many thanks. I really appreciate your support and participation. I'm Martin North, the Principal Analyst at Digital Finance Analytics. Many thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.